Hey folks, Lenny Lawson, the car guru here again. I'm going to have to put together a blooper reel someday. All of my false starts when I'm recording this program. It used to be that I did one live show, which was on WJCW radio, and then I would sit down and record 4 more back to back. That was exhausting. So now I just do a fresh one every day, 3 o'clock. Pretty much on the nose. I'll sit here in my office at Gateway Ford and cut a new episode like I'm doing right now. Had some interesting issues last week, and towards the end of the week, I had an embarrassing one. And it really shouldn't be embarrassing for me. I had a customer who's a friend. They're not frequent customers, but they do come here for service on a regular basis, and they wanted to buy a car. And they wanted to finance the car, and they had a trade-in. It was paid for, and it was probably worth, I can't remember the ACV. I think it was about $10,000. So not bad. That would make a pretty good down payment on a new vehicle. And I couldn't get them financed. Out of the 20 or so different financial institutions that we use on a regular basis, none of them would loan these people money on a new vehicle with $10,000 down. Just not right, is it? Well, that's just the way it is. That's based on more than just their credit score. It's their credit history, which is the credit score is a reflection of that. Credit scores normally range from 300 to 850. So a good FICO score is what they call it, is typically between 670 and 739, while scores above 800 are considered exceptional. Those people can walk into a car dealership, buy anything, probably finance 130% of MSRP, like if they're way upside down on something and they need to finance more than the car actually retails for. Can you believe some people have to do that? But yeah, exceptional is 800 to 850. Very good, 740 to 799. Good, 670 to 739. This is at about the U.S. average, considered a dependable borrower. Then you get below that, 580 to 699. You got credit issues. There are some definite blips on the radar screen. It could be that you are behind on credit card payments or on your existing car loan or on your mortgage on your house, or you could be current on everything. But in the past year, you've had a lot of issues, a lot of late pays. You've had a couple charge-offs. Charge-off can be $10 at a hospital bill that, you paid everything except $10. What do they do with that $10? They charge it off, and that goes on your credit report. That's why you need to look at your credit report once a year, maybe every 6 months, and see if there are any charge-offs. Because you can have outstanding credit, and you just didn't know that a certain amount was left over on a bill. And this happens a lot when it comes to hospital bills and doctor's visits and stuff like that. You didn't pay your copay. It was $30. And they sent you some statements either through the mail or by email, and you didn't pay it. So they charged it off, and it hit your credit, and it drops your FICO score. And then if you have a score below 580, you're just a high risk to the lenders. That's the way they look at you. They look at your payment history. They look at the amount of debt that you have, the existing debt, and they just don't want to finance you, and that was the case with these folks. So their only option is to find some independent business that will finance them, like a buy here, pay here car lot. That's what, that's why there are buy here, pay here car lots. It's for people who have horrendous credit, and that's about the only way to say it. I mean, why go and pay 18 to 28% interest? Can you imagine that? In today's market, that's the interest rate those people are paying. And you think that's high, you ought to see what the check cashing places charge for interest. I mean, these title loan places, it can be over 100% interest. That's annual percentage rate is what I'm talking about. So if you keep that loan intact and don't pay it off for a year, if it was $500 before, now it's $1,000 that you have to pay back. Okay, that's enough about that. You may be saying, hey, Lenny, your voice sounds different. And it does. It's lower. I'm hoarse. I'm not sick. I got to go to the UT Alabama basketball game the other night, and I got to sit on the sidelines with a good friend of mine who has deep enough pockets that he can afford to buy seats on the sideline. And when I say on the sideline, if I stretch my legs out, I'm about 1 foot from the sideline of the basketball court. And it had been a while since I had done that. And the game really hasn't changed that much. It's just that I lost my appreciation, I guess, or my knowledge about how hard these guys play and what unbelievable physical specimens they have to be able to take that kind of a pounding. I mean, the college game at the Division I level, it's physical. I mean, if they put high school referees in there instead of SEC referees, like for this Tennessee-Alabama game, they'd be calling a foul about every 2 seconds. You'd never get the game over with. And the difference between a foul and just shoving the you-know-what out of somebody is just a little bit. And then they'll call these little touch fouls when they go up for a shot or something. I mean, it gets kind of frustrating, and that's when the yelling happens. Are you crazy? And that I must have said, are you crazy? Are you kidding me? That type of thing. I must have said it louder than I thought I was. I wasn't yelling at the referees. I was just making a point, expressing my freedom of speech. Maybe a little louder than I thought. Okay, I'll be back in just 1 minute. Okay, I am back. Isn't it interesting how young people think that they're done with school when they graduate, either from high school or college? They're not done learning. They're just getting started. They just got their learner's permit, and somebody, namely a credit bureau, is going to keep on scoring them as they go through life and as they borrow money, as they get credit cards and buy cars and buy a house and finance furniture and other things, boats, jet skis, what else are wastes of money? Campers. When they do that and that becomes a part of their lifestyle, it's all going to be tracked. And it will impact their ability to borrow money in the future. And lots of them will still be able to borrow money. They'll just pay a higher interest rate. I've had people come in and say, well, you guys are offering 0% financing. And under my breath, I'm saying, yeah, but that's not for you. Because of your credit score, you don't qualify. You see, the credit bureaus score you for, any type of bank. Banks use these. Car dealers use them. Any place you go to borrow money, they're going to look at your credit score, or take a loan out on a stereo. Somebody's going to check your credit. But when you come in to borrow money for a car, not only are they going to check your credit, that score is going to be related to a table. And that table says A, B, C, D, E. And if you're A or a B, then you can get that 0% financing. But if you're a C, you probably won't, unless somebody is willing to, like some loan officer at Ford Credit or Toyota Credit, somebody gets involved and they talk it over with the dealership and they move them up a tier. But if you're a D tier, or if they have E and F, you can forget about 0% financing. You're going to either have to pay regular rates, which are going to be in the 7 to 8% still, or not financed at all. And if they can get you financed, you're going to have to go with one of these quasi-banks, these loan institutions that charge rates in the 12 to 25% range. Isn't that awful? People say, well, that's not fair. Yeah, it's fair. And you did it to yourself, or your circumstances did it to you. And I say that, and it hurts my heart to say it, because a lot of people that have terrible credit scores are there at really no fault of their own, in that they had a sick child, or they got sick and couldn't work, or they lost their job and couldn't find another job. So there's all kinds of circumstances. If a bank or one of these lenders understands the circumstances going in, then sometimes they'll help somebody get back on their feet. And that will happen more often than you think. The best thing that a person can do if they are in that type of credit situation is to go to the car dealership where you want to buy a car and ask to speak to like one of the sales managers and just talk to them, explain to them up front what you know your credit situation is. And what they'll do is they'll pull a credit bureau report. They'll look at your score, at all of your circumstances, and they will do their best to build a case that you're on the right track now. Yes, you had some trouble 6 months ago or a year ago or even 5 years ago. Your credit report goes back 7 years. And so if you file bankruptcy, then it's very possible that if you've been really good since the bankruptcy, like over a year or two, that you'll be able to qualify for a good rate. When you file bankruptcy, what happens to your debts? Well, it depends on if you file Chapter 7 or Chapter 11. But let's say Chapter 7 bankruptcy, all your debts go away, except for those that you affirm. What does that mean? Well, let's say that you file bankruptcy and you've got all these debts, credit card debts and stuff like that, but you also, one of your debts is your mortgage. You want to keep your house, so you affirm that debt, and then you have a car loan, and you can affirm that debt. Now, some of the other creditors may take an issue with you affirming certain debts. They say, why not us? Why not affirm our debt? And a bankruptcy judge is going to be the one who determines who gets what, who gets paid and who doesn't. So nobody wants to go through that process, but a lot of people do. And you know how they end up there? Because they could not control their purchases, or because, like I said, they had some type of life-altering event that they couldn't pay their bills. And I feel for those people. I really do. And if those are the circumstances, then lenders are more willing to look at that and say, okay, they've reestablished the last 6 months to a year, year and a half. They've been good. They've paid everything as agreed. You're going to get financed. You may have to pay a higher rate that first time. Like when you buy a car now, you might have to pay 12%. But the next time, if you do really good on that loan for a couple years, you're never late, everything is paid as agreed, the next time you go to get a loan, your score could still be lower than it needs to be, but you could get that 0% financing. And, life gets better when you have a lower cost of funds when it comes to your debt. So when it comes to factors that impact your score, payment history is 35% of your score. So if you make your payments on time, you improve your score. If you miss a payment, then that hurts it. Now, one thing that people don't think about, and this is very important, let's say you have a 60-month loan and you've made 20 payments on time, and then you have a bad month financially or a bad couple months. And so one payment, you just skipped it. You didn't pay it. Of course, the bank calls you, threatens all kinds of things other than bodily harm. But you just don't pay it. And then the next month comes up and you start paying again. So every time you make a payment from then on out, because you skipped a payment, every payment from there until you get to 60 months is 30 days late. And it's because you didn't make the payment that you skipped. If you had made double payments when you had the money, then you would be current all the rest of that time. So we've seen this a lot on people's credit reports is, they'll miss one payment real early in the loan cycle. And for the next 3 or 4 years, every single payment is late because they never caught up on that one payment. So payment history is 35%. The amount that you owe is 30% of your score. And if all of that is revolving credit, you know what that is? Credit cards. That's called revolving credit. If all of your debt is credit cards, that's going to hurt your score a lot. And if you're just paying the interest and you're not paying the principal of that loan, I mean, you're hurting yourself definitely, but you're also hurting your credit score. And then another type of debt is installment credit, and that's where you're making monthly payments, like on a car loan, like on a boat loan, camper loan, any of those where you have a regular monthly payment. Mortgage, if you are late on your mortgage, that is weighted very heavily, because the way the lenders look at that is if you won't pay for your house, you won't pay for anything. And then, of course, length of credit history. A lot of young people, they get frustrated because, they say, well, I've had a credit card all through college. Yeah, but who was paying it? And then you have those folks who have 15 different credit cards or even 5 different credit cards. How many should you have? That's right, 1. That's all the credit cards you need. The only reason people have more than one credit card is because they sign up for them all the time. We'll give you 10% off or 20% off if you sign up for the American Eagle credit card when you buy these blue jeans. Oh, that sounds great. Don't do that. That is a terrible financial move, to have a bunch of credit cards out there and all these lines of credit. Your credit limit may only be $1,000, but you've got that credit card and it's on your credit report. And if you owe $50 on it or $500, they're going to count all of those credit cards that you have, and that's going to destroy your credit score. So please, every time you're given an opportunity to sign up for another credit card for a discount, tell them no thank you. So, how many credit cards does the Car Guru have? 2. 1 American Express card I've had since 1979. It used to be a big deal when I got out of college to get an American Express card. It was an aspirational thing. And so I got it, and I pay the fees to have it, and I have a really good cash back offer on my American Express card, so I keep that. And the other one is a Visa card, because at a lot of places they won't take American Express. And that's it. That's all you need. And if you need more credit cards than that, you're probably spending too much. This is primarily for young people, okay? They need to listen to this because they're getting ready to graduate from college, or they're getting out of high school and going to be going to work, and they want to be responsible citizens and they want to be financially responsible. And one of the ways to really get off track is to get too many credit cards and start charging things on them. You should pay that balance every month. Don't ever charge more on a credit card than you can pay. And there's a lot of people right now, they say, well, I can't live if I don't charge something on a credit card. We don't make enough money to support our monthly expenses. Then you're going to have to reduce your monthly expenses. You bought that car and your payment's $840 a month. Maybe you need to get rid of that and get you a car that's $400 a month. It's tough. It's tough love. Sometimes that's what we have to do. Okay, I'll be back in just 1 minute. I'll give you a goal that I think that every young person should have, and it's a financial goal, and that's by the age of 50. I know that might sound too far out there, but by the age of 50, you never have to borrow any more money for anything. So you've got approximately 30 years to get yourself to that position. And I think one of the best things you can do is early on, once you get a little bit of money in the bank and you got to start saving young, is to get a financial advisor. Get some type of financial guru to help you plan your future. And you may be able to push that down to 40 and you don't have to borrow any more money. But you can then walk into a car dealership and buy a car and pay cash. Want to buy a camper? Want to buy a boat? Fine. Just don't buy one until you can pay cash for it. Never go in debt for a recreational item, whether it's a four-wheeler, motorcycle, some kind of a toy like that. If you can't pay cash for it, you don't buy it. So in order to be able to do that, you've got to match up your income with your expenses and make sure that the income exceeds the expenses enough so that you can save anywhere from 10 to 15% of your income every year. Save it. I mean, stick it in a bank, and when it gets up to a certain level, start buying CDs. And when it gets even a higher level, start blending in some mutual funds. But all of this is under direction of a financial advisor who's going to take 1 to 1.5% of the value of your portfolio going forward. So whatever you have every year, they get 1 to 1.5% to help you make good financial decisions. They don't get a commission because you don't need to pay somebody a commission to invest your money. You just pay your financial advisor a flat fee, and then they will manage your money for that fee. And so when you buy a share of Apple stock or Exxon or whatever, you're not paying a commission on that. But all of this is a plan that you put into place so that when you're 50, you've got no debt, and you're not going to add any debt. You want to buy a beach house? Don't. Rent it. Buy one if you want to, because of increasing values, but not if you can't pay cash for it. I mean, that's just the rule that you live by. And it has served the World War II generation very well. They were savers. You know how many people are still alive, soldiers, that fought in World War II? 66,000. You know how many served? 16.4 million Americans served in the war. So they're going away. My parents are gone. My dad was in the Navy. Those people knew how to live within their means, and that's something that this generation just doesn't seem very good at. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of My Car Guru. Sorry if I lectured a little bit, but I think there's people out there that need to hear this message and take it to heart. Well, I'll see you on the next edition of My Car Guru.